I stood there in my $5,000 wedding gown, mascara running down my face while 200 guests waited at the church. The text message on my phone simply read, "I can't do this, I'm sorry." Just like that, my fiancée of 3 years left me at the altar without even a phone call. A young woman in a stunning white wedding dress stands frozen amid the rush of Grand Central Station. Tears stream down her face, smearing carefully applied makeup. Commuters hurry past, some slowing to stare, others averting their eyes from her obvious distress. She clutches her phone in trembling hands, the diamond ring that once adorned her finger now missing. Have you ever had your entire life collapse in a single moment? Have you felt that sudden, breathtaking pain when everything you believed about your future shatters into pieces? Today's story will take you on a journey that begins with ultimate betrayal and ends with something no one could have predicted. This abandoned bride thought her life was over. She had no home to return to, having given up her apartment in preparation for moving in with her new husband. No job, having resigned to relocate for his career. And now, no relationship, just overwhelming humiliation and heartbreak. But what happened when a little girl spotted the crying princess across the train platform? And who was the serious-looking man in the expensive suit holding the child's hand? The encounter that followed would change 3 lives forever in ways none of them could imagine. If you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or lost everything you counted on, this story will show you that sometimes our worst moments can lead us to our greatest happiness, if we have the courage to keep our hearts open. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell right now to join our storytelling family. I need your support to keep bringing these incredible true stories to life. Drop a comment with the word courage if you've ever had to start over when all seemed lost. Now, let's dive into today's remarkable story of love rising from the ashes of heartbreak. Welcome back to Mr. Ross Story Trail, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in extraordinary stories. If you're new here, I'm your host, and I believe that every moment of adversity contains the seeds of something beautiful. Before we continue with today's incredible story about an abandoned bride and the unexpected encounter that changed her life, take a quick second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Why? Because each week, I bring you true stories that will move you, inspire you, and remind you of the incredible resilience of the human spirit. This particular story struck me deeply because it reveals how quickly life can change, for worse and then for better. I promise you'll want to hear how this ends. So many of you have messaged me saying these stories have helped you through difficult times, and that's exactly why I do this. If you've ever faced heartbreak, betrayal, or had to completely rebuild your life, drop A in the comments right now. Let's create a community of support for anyone going through tough times. Your engagement helps this channel grow and allows these stories to reach others who might desperately need to hear them today. Now, let's return to Grand Central Station, where a devastated bride in a beautiful white gown is about to have an encounter that will forever alter the course of her life. For those of you who've been with me from the beginning, thank you for your unwavering support. You know how passionate I am about sharing stories that not only entertain but also teach us profound lessons about life, love, and resilience. And if this is your first time here, welcome to our storytelling family. I'm truly grateful you've joined us today. The story you're about to hear is one that reminds us how life's most painful moments can sometimes be the doorway to unexpected joy. As we follow Aria Bennett's journey from abandoned bride to an entirely new life, I invite you to reflect on those moments in your own life when what seemed like an ending became a beautiful beginning. I research hundreds of remarkable true stories each week to bring you the most moving and meaningful narratives. This particular story caught my attention because it shows how a simple act of kindness, a father and daughter approaching a stranger in distress, can set in motion a chain of events that transforms lives. Today's tale spans heartbreak, compassion, second chances, and ultimately, a love that no one saw coming. It challenges us to consider, what if our worst day is actually preparing us for our best life? What if the people we're yet to meet are the ones who will heal wounds we thought would never close? As we journey through Aria's story together, I encourage you to keep an open heart. Sometimes the universe has plans far greater than anything we could imagine for ourselves. So settle in, perhaps grab a tissue or two, and let me take you back to that fateful day at Grand Central Station, where a woman in a wedding dress stood crying, her dreams shattered, unaware that her true love story was about to begin. Aria Bennett and Dominic Pierce met during her final semester of graduate school. She was completing her MBA with a focus on marketing, pulling all-nighters in the university library. Dominic, a charismatic law student with ambitions of joining his father's prestigious firm, had claimed the study carrel opposite hers. "You look like you could use this more than me," he'd said one evening, sliding a cup of coffee across the table with a smile that made her heart skip. That simple gesture led to study sessions that evolved into dinner dates, weekend getaways, and eventually a shared apartment. Their relationship progressed with the comfortable certainty that came from similar backgrounds and aligned goals. Both were career-focused overachievers from upper-middle-class families. Both valued stability and success. On paper, they made perfect sense. "We're partners," Dominic would say. "Your ambition is what attracted me to you. We'll build our careers together." Arya believed him completely. When her academic advisor recommended her for a prestigious marketing position in Chicago, her dream job, she consulted Dominic first. "That's amazing, babe," he'd said. "But my father's counting on me joining the firm here after graduation. We need to think about our future together." The conversation ended with Arya declining the Chicago offer. "The right sacrifices make relationships work," she told her disappointed advisor. "There will be other opportunities here." 8 months into their relationship, during a weekend trip to the coast, Dominic proposed at sunset on the beach. The ring was stunning, a family heirloom diamond reset in a modern platinum band. As he slid it onto her finger, Arya felt certainty wash over her. This was her future. This was right. "I can't wait to spend my life with you," Dominic had whispered against her hair. "We're going to build something extraordinary together." Looking back, Arya would later recognize the warning signs she'd missed. How Dominic's father had frowned slightly when they announced their engagement. How Dominic began working later at the firm once he joined. How his texts became shorter and less frequent. How he'd grown irritable during wedding planning, calling her obsessive when she sought his input. But at the time, she'd attributed it all to normal stress. After all, they were both building careers while planning a wedding. Pressure was expected, temporary. Soon they would be married, settled, and everything would fall into place, exactly as she'd always planned. The wedding planning consumed Arya's life for 8 months. With her marketing background, she approached it like a high-stakes project, creating mood boards, spreadsheets, and timelines. She wanted everything to be perfect, not just for show, but because she believed a beautiful beginning set the stage for a beautiful life. "Don't you think the platinum package is excessive?" Dominic had questioned when she presented the catering options. "My parents are already covering the venue." Arya had compromised, again and again. The guest list trimmed from 250 to 200. The honeymoon shortened from 2 weeks to 10 days. The designer dress exchanged for a sample sale find. "Marriage is about compromise," her mother reminded her when Arya called, frustrated after another disagreement with Dominic about wedding details. "Men don't care about these things the way we do." So Arya shouldered the planning alone, presenting Dominic with only the decisions that absolutely required his input. She told herself this was temporary, that once they were married, once his first year at the firm was complete, they would find their rhythm again. 2 months before the wedding, Dominic's bachelor party weekend left him distant and moody. When Arya asked if everything was okay, he'd snapped at her. "Can I have some space? Not everything is about the wedding, Arya." She'd backed off, burying her hurt in more planning details. The invitations went out. RSVPs returned. Her dress fittings were completed. Wedding favors were assembled during girls' nights with her bridesmaids, who assured her that pre-wedding tension was normal. "Jason and I barely spoke the week before our wedding," her maid of honor confided. "Now we're celebrating 5 years next month." The night before the wedding, during their rehearsal dinner, Dominic had seemed almost like his old self, charming, attentive, raising a toast to my beautiful bride-to-be that brought tears to Arya's eyes. "See," she told herself as she fell asleep in her parents' guest room. "Everything is fine. Tomorrow will be perfect." The morning of her wedding day dawned bright and clear. Arya woke to mimosas and breakfast with her bridesmaids, her mother fussing over her hair as the stylist worked. Everything proceeded according to her meticulously planned timeline. Until 11:42 a.m., when her phone lit up with Dominic's message, "I can't do this, I'm sorry." At first she was sure it was a joke, a terrible, tasteless joke. She called him immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. She tried his best man, who answered with uncomfortable hesitation. "Arya, I don't know what to tell you. He's gone. He packed a bag and took off about an hour ago." The room around her went silent as her bridesmaids registered her expression. Her mother took the phone, demanding answers the best man didn't have. Arya sat motionless, her half-styled hair forgotten, the glass of champagne in her hand suddenly repulsive. The next hour passed in a blur of tears, shouting, and frantic phone calls. Dominic's parents arrived, his mother crying, his father grim-faced and apologetic. "He called us from the road," Mr. Pierce explained stiffly, said he realized he wasn't ready, that he made a mistake letting it go this far. "A mistake?" Arya had repeated, her voice hollow. "Our relationship is a mistake?" The guests were already arriving at the church. Someone needed to tell them. Someone needed to cancel the caterers, the florists, the DJ. Someone needed to decide what happened next. "I'll handle it," her father had said, taking charge with quiet dignity. "You don't need to face this crowd." But the thought of hiding in her childhood bedroom while everyone whispered about her humiliation was unbearable. Without fully forming a plan, Arya had grabbed her purse and the small overnight bag she'd packed for their wedding night. "I need some air," she told her stunned mother, and walked out the door. Still wearing her wedding dress, her makeup smeared, her hair half done. She drove aimlessly at first, then with sudden purpose toward Grand Central Station. A train. She would take a train somewhere, anywhere, and figure out the rest later. As she walked through the station, diamond ring still on her finger, the stares of strangers brought the reality crashing down. 3 years of her life, her career sacrifices, the apartment she'd given up, the Chicago job long since filled by another candidate. She was homeless, jobless, and publicly humiliated. Standing at the ticket counter, Arya finally removed her engagement ring, tears flowing freely again. In a moment of symbolic defiance, she walked to the decorative fountain near the main concourse and threw the ring in, watching it sink to join the scattered coins and lost dreams of countless others. That's when she heard the station announcement, Train 219 to Boston now boarding at Platform 12, Boston. She'd never been. It seemed as good a destination as any. Arya wiped her tears, smearing her makeup further, and made her way toward Platform 12, unaware that fate was about to intervene in the form of a curious little girl and her father waiting on the same platform. On Platform 12 of Grand Central Station, a tall, distinguished man in a tailored charcoal suit checked his watch while keeping a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. At 42, Reed was the definition of composed efficiency, a man whose business empire had been built through calculated decisions and unwavering focus. But around 6-year-old Sophia, that carefully maintained control softened into something entirely different. "Daddy, can I have a hot chocolate before our train?" Sophia asked, her wide brown eyes looking up at him hopefully. "We just had lunch," he reminded her, but his stern expression was already melting. "And you had a cookie for dessert." Sophia tilted her head, a gesture that never failed to remind him of her mother. "But train rides need hot chocolate. It's tradition." "Since when?" he asked, fighting a smile. Reed shook his head, already defeated. "One small hot chocolate, and you're brushing your teeth twice tonight." As they walked toward the station cafe, Sophia slipped her small hand into his much larger one. The simple gesture still amazed him, this tiny person who trusted him completely, who looked at him as though he held all the answers to the universe. The weight of that responsibility had terrified him when he'd first become a single father 3 years ago. Now, it was the foundation of his entire world. Their routine had developed over those 3 difficult years. Weekday mornings began with breakfast together, no matter how early Reed needed to be at the office. Sophia helped select his ties, a task she approached with serious consideration. Evenings included at least 1 hour of undivided attention, playing games, reading stories, or simply talking about her day. Weekends were sacred, devoted entirely to activities of Sophia's choosing, from museums to code playground adventures. His executive assistant had learned quickly that meetings could never be scheduled during school pickup time. His board members had grown accustomed to finding coloring books occasionally mixed in with quarterly reports, and the household staff knew that Sophia's opinion on dinner options carried equal weight to the man who signed their paychecks. Today's train journey to Boston was for Reed Innovation's newest acquisition, a promising tech startup he'd been pursuing for months. But he'd arranged the trip to coincide with Sophia's school break, planning extra days to visit the children's museum and aquarium she'd been asking about. "Remember, when we get to Boston, I have one important meeting tomorrow morning," Reed explained as they approached the cafe. "Mrs. Chen will stay with you at the hotel until I'm finished, and then the rest of the trip is just you and me. Deal?" "Don't deal," Sophia agreed solemnly. "But can we get room service breakfast with pancakes?" "With pancakes," he confirmed, wondering when exactly he'd lost the ability to say no to this child. As they waited for Sophia's hot chocolate, Reed noticed how his daughter watched people in the bustling station, observing with quiet intensity, sometimes whispering questions to him about where she thought they might be going. Her perceptiveness both impressed and occasionally concerned him. Sometimes she seemed to carry an awareness beyond her years, a side effect, perhaps, of losing her mother so young. "Your hot chocolate, Miss Reed," the barista announced with a small bow that made Sophia giggle. "Thank you," she replied with perfect politeness. Another thing that struck him daily, how despite her occasional stubborn streaks and sweet-tooth negotiations, she remained unfailingly kind. Elena would have been proud of that. As they made their way back toward Platform 12, Sophia carefully balancing her hot chocolate while Reed carried their weekend bags, the station announcement indicated they still had 15 minutes before boarding. They found a bench with a clear view of the arrival board, Sophia's legs swinging as she sipped her treat. "Is your meeting about computers again?" she asked. "Sort of," Reed answered. "This company makes special chips that help computers think more like people do." The question caught him off guard, as her questions about Elena often did. "No, sweetheart, your mom was one of a kind. No computer could ever capture how special she was." Sophia nodded, seemingly satisfied. "That's good. I wouldn't want a computer mommy, but I still miss real mommy." "Me too," Reed said softly, putting his arm around her small shoulders. Every day, Elena Reed had been brilliant, a quantum physicist whose research had helped launch Reed Innovation's most groundbreaking projects. They'd met at MIT when they were both graduate students, he in business and engineering, she in theoretical physics. Their courtship had been a meeting of minds first, hearts second, intellectual debates over coffee evolving into deeper connections over late-night lab sessions. They married 2 years after graduation, just as Reed's first major innovation was gaining serious investor attention. Elena had been his sounding board, his reality check, and eventually his full research partner as Reed Innovations grew from a promising startup to a technology powerhouse. Sophia's birth had transformed them both. The focused scientist and driven entrepreneurs suddenly found themselves utterly captivated by tiny fingers and first smiles. They'd adjusted their schedules, created a nursery adjacent to Elena's lab, and somehow managed to balance parenthood with their demanding careers. When Sophia was 3, Elena began experiencing persistent headaches. The diagnosis came with brutal swiftness, glioblastoma, an aggressive brain tumor. Within weeks, Elena moved from leading research meetings to undergoing experimental treatments that she herself had helped develop in an earlier project, a cruel irony neither of them could ignore. "Promise me you won't shut down," Elena had whispered during one of her final lucid moments. "Sophia needs your heart open, not just your mind working." "I don't know how to do this without you," Reed had admitted, holding her increasingly frail hand. "Yes, you do," she'd insisted. "You'll learn as you go, just like we did with everything else." Elena died 6 months after her diagnosis, leaving Reed to keep a promise that seemed impossible. The first year as a widower and single father had nearly broken him. He functioned on autopilot, maintaining Sophia's routines, ensuring the company continued to thrive. But emotionally he remained frozen, accessible only to his daughter. It was Sophia who ultimately began thawing his grief-locked heart. On the anniversary of Elena's death, he'd found his daughter in their home observatory, a room he'd avoided since Elena's passing. Sophia had arranged Elena's collection of meteorite specimens in a pattern across the floor. "Mommy told me stars make patterns called constellations," she'd explained. "I made a mommy constellation so we can find her in the sky." That night, Reed had cried for the first time since the funeral, holding Sophia as they both looked up at the stars through the observatory dome. After that, healing began, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. They established new traditions, honored Elena's memory while building a life that could contain joy again. Now, 3 years after losing her, Reed could mention Elena without his voice catching. Sophia spoke of her mother freely, incorporating her into conversations as though she were merely in another room. They visited her favorite places on her birthday. They donated to brain cancer research in her name. They moved forward while keeping her with them. What Reed hadn't done, hadn't even considered, was opening himself to the possibility of another relationship. His world had narrowed to Sophia and Reed Innovations, with no room for anything else. Or so he believed, until a woman in a wedding dress caught his daughter's attention on platform 12. "Daddy, why is that princess crying?" Sophia's question pulled Reed from his thoughts. Following his daughter's gaze, he spotted a young woman in a wedding dress standing alone across the platform. Even from a distance, her distress was evident, shoulders shaking, mascara streaking down her cheeks as she stared blankly at the departure board. "I don't know," he answered quietly. "But it's not polite to stare, Sophia." "She looks really sad," Sophia persisted, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "Maybe she lost someone too." Reed felt a familiar tug at his heart. Sophia's empathy often manifested this way, an immediate connection to anyone in pain. Perhaps she just needs some privacy right now. Sophia's brow furrowed. "When I'm sad, privacy makes it worse." Before Reed could stop her, she was on her feet, hot chocolate abandoned. "We should help her." "Sophia, wait!" Reed called, but his daughter was already weaving through the sparse crowd toward the woman. With a sigh, he gathered their bags and followed, mentally preparing his apology for his daughter's intrusion. By the time he caught up, Sophia was already standing before the bride, looking up with solemn concern. "Excuse me, princess, are you lost?" Sophia asked, her voice gentle. The woman seemed startled from a trance, blinking rapidly as she focused on the child before her. Despite her smeared makeup and obvious distress, Reed couldn't help noticing her natural beauty, delicate features, expressive eyes, and a quiet dignity even in crisis. "No, sweetie," she answered, managing a weak smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm just having a very bad day." "This is my daddy," Sophia announced, pointing to Reed as he approached. "He's very good at fixing bad days." Reed felt heat rise to his face, embarrassed by his daughter's bold claim. "I apologize for my daughter's intrusion," he said, extending his hand automatically. "Sophia has a tendency to adopt people she thinks need help." The woman accepted his handshake briefly. Her hand was cold, trembling slightly. "It's all right. She's very sweet." An awkward silence fell between them. Reed noticed the woman had no luggage beyond a small overnight bag, despite her formal attire. The absence of a wedding ring on her finger while dressed as a bride told a story he didn't need to ask about. "I'm Sophia Reed," his daughter continued, apparently immune to the awkwardness. "I'm 6 3/4. What's your name?" The woman's expression softened slightly. "I'm Aria Bennett." "That's a pretty name," Sophia declared. "Are you taking a train?" "We're going to Boston. Daddy has a meeting, but then we're going to see penguins at the aquarium." "Sophia," Reed gently admonished, "Miss Bennett probably doesn't need to hear our entire itinerary." Aria tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, her styled updo now partially collapsed. "Actually, I was about to buy a ticket to Boston myself." Her voice sounded hollow, detached, seemed as good a destination as any. Reed studied her more carefully now, recognizing the look of someone making decisions in shock. He'd seen it in the mirror 3 years ago. "Miss Bennett," he began cautiously. "Forgive me for overstepping, but are you all right? Is there someone we can call for you?" Aria's composed expression crumbled slightly. "No, there's no one to call." Her voice broke on the last word. "I was supposed to be on my honeymoon by now, but instead—" She gestured vaguely at herself, tears threatening again. Sophia reached out and took Aria's hand. "When I'm sad, Daddy always says hot chocolate helps. We were just getting some. Would you like one?" Reed watched as Aria looked down at his daughter's earnest face, saw something shift in her expression, the first genuine emotion beyond pain. "I should probably say no," Aria admitted, "but honestly, I have nowhere to be and no plan whatsoever. So, yes, Sophia. I think hot chocolate sounds perfect right now." As the unlikely trio made their way toward the station cafe, Reed felt a strange certainty settle over him, a feeling he hadn't experienced since meeting Elena decades ago. The universe had just shifted, almost imperceptibly, setting them on a new path. Where it led, he couldn't begin to guess. The station cafe buzzed with travelers clutching coffee cups and checking departure times. Reed secured a quiet corner table, while Sophia led Aria by the hand as if guiding a lost friend. The contrast between them was striking, the small child in her neat travel clothes beside the woman in a rumpled wedding gown. "What kind do you want?" Sophia asked Aria, pointing to the menu board. "They have regular, white chocolate and dark chocolate with cinnamon." Aria glanced at the board, seeming momentarily overwhelmed by even this simple decision. "Just regular, I think." "I'll get them," Reed offered, leaving the two at the table. From the counter, he watched his daughter chatting animatedly to Aria, who nodded occasionally, her posture gradually relaxing. Whatever Sophia was saying appeared to be providing a welcome distraction. When he returned with 3 hot chocolates, Sophia was explaining her science project about the solar system. "And Daddy helped me make Neptune spin for real using magnets," she concluded proudly. "That sounds impressive," Aria said, accepting the cup Reed offered. "Thank you for this, both of you. It's kind." Reed sat down, noting how Aria's hands had stopped trembling. "Sophia has a gift for knowing when people need kindness. I've learned to trust her instincts." "Smart dad," Aria commented, attempting a smile. "Most parents would drag their child away from the crazy crying lady in a wedding dress." "Are you a real princess?" Sophia asked, chocolate already forming a mustache above her lip. Aria shook her head. "No, sweetie, just a regular person having an extremely bad day." "Because your prince didn't come?" Sophia pressed, her perception uncomfortably accurate. Reed started to intervene, but Aria answered with surprising candor. "Something like that. He decided at the last minute he didn't want to be a prince anymore." She looked directly at Sophia, her tone gentle despite her pain. "Sometimes people make promises they don't keep." Sophia considered this, frowning. "That's not right. Daddy says promises are forever, especially big ones." Reed cleared his throat. "Sophia, perhaps Miss Bennett would prefer to talk about something else." "Actually," Aria said, her honesty is refreshing. "Everyone else has been walking on eggshells, offering platitudes. Everything happens for a reason. Better to find out now." As if that helps when 200 people are waiting at a church and you're standing there holding a bouquet while your maid of honor reads you a text message. The raw hurt in her voice resonated with Reed in unexpected ways. Different circumstances, but he recognized the disorientation of having life suddenly veer off course. Adults often say meaningless things when confronted with pain they can't fix, he offered. Sinai experienced similar reactions after my wife passed away. Arya's eyes widened slightly. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to compare my situation to... Pain isn't a competition, Reed interrupted gently. Loss is loss. Context differs, but the feeling of having the ground disappear beneath your feet is universal. A silence fell between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with mutual recognition. My mommy is in heaven, Sophia announced matter-of-factly, breaking the silence. She watches us from the stars. Daddy made a special room with a glass ceiling so we can see her better. Sophia, Reed admonished softly. It's okay, Arya assured him. I'm sorry about your mom, she said to Sophia. It was 3 years and 4 months ago, Sophia reported precisely. I was little then. Now I help Daddy remember important things, like dentist appointments, and when plants need water. Arya smiled, her first genuine smile since they'd met. You sound like an excellent assistant. The best, Reed agreed, grateful for his daughter's ability to navigate difficult conversations with innocent directness, though her negotiation skills regarding bedtime and desserts are becoming concerning. As they talked, Arya gradually shared more details about her situation, how she'd met Dominic during graduate school, their relationship, developing alongside their career ambitions, and ultimately the choices she'd made to accommodate his path at the expense of her own. The irony is, I gave up a dream job in Chicago to stay here with him. I let my apartment go last month since we were supposed to move into his condo after the honeymoon. She stared into her now empty cup. So I'm essentially homeless, jobless, and publicly humiliated. A perfect trifecta. Reed listened attentively as Arya spoke, his analytical mind already assessing possibilities. Hearing about her marketing background and the Chicago position she'd declined stirred his interest. Reed Innovations had recently lost their marketing director to a competitor, and the search for a replacement had proven challenging. What was your focus in graduate school? He asked, steering the conversation toward professional ground. Digital marketing with a specialization in tech industry branding, Arya answered, seeming relieved to discuss something other than her personal disaster. My thesis analyzed how emerging tech companies transition their marketing strategies from specialist audiences to mainstream consumers. Reed raised an eyebrow, genuinely impressed. That's precisely the challenge we're facing at Reed Innovations right now. We've dominated the business-to-business space, but our consumer products division needs stronger positioning. Reed Innovations? Arya repeated, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. The quantum computing company? I referenced your neural interface campaign in my thesis. Your shift from technical specifications to experience-based messaging was brilliant. For the first time, Reed saw beyond the distressed bride to the intelligent professional beneath. Her eyes had lit up discussing marketing strategy, her posture straightening as she briefly escaped her immediate crisis. That campaign increased our market share by 32%, Reed confirmed, though our current team hasn't managed to replicate its success with our newer product lines. Because you're still emphasizing functionality over emotional connection, Arya observed, then caught herself. I'm sorry, that was presumptuous. I've just studied your company's approach extensively. Reed shook his head, intrigued by her insight. No apology necessary. You're absolutely right. Our engineering team drives our messaging, often at the expense of connecting with non-technical consumers. Sophia, growing restless with the business talk, had begun drawing on a napkin with a pen from Reed's pocket. Checking his watch, Reed realized their train would board soon. Miss Bennett, Arya, may I make a suggestion? He asked, coming to a decision. She looked at him cautiously. What kind of suggestion? You mentioned you're without immediate accommodation. We're staying at the Windsor in Boston for the next 3 days. I've maintained a corporate account there for years, and they always prepare a suite with an extra bedroom for Sophia's nanny, though she couldn't make this trip. He presented this information matter-of-factly, careful to keep any hint of pity from his tone. Are you offering me a place to stay? Arya asked, clearly surprised. I'm offering you a chance to catch your breath, Reed clarified. The room would otherwise remain empty. You'd have privacy, space to think, and time to make plans beyond today's crisis. No obligations or expectations. Arya hesitated, understandably wary. That's incredibly generous, but... Please come with us, Sophia interjected, looking up from her drawing. I drew you a picture. See? It's you, me, and Daddy in Boston with the penguins. Reed watched as Arya's resistance softened at Sophia's earnest invitation. Sophia, Adults need to make their own decisions, he reminded his daughter gently. But sometimes adults forget they can say yes to help, Sophia countered with disarming wisdom. Arya looked between father and daughter, conflict evident on her face. I don't know. This is very kind, but accepting feels complicated. Only if we make it so, Reed said pragmatically. Consider it practical assistance during an emergency. Boston gives you distance from today's events. The room provides temporary shelter. Once there, you can make your next decisions from a place of calm rather than crisis. The train announcement for their Boston departure interrupted their conversation. Reed gathered their belongings while Sophia carefully folded her drawing and presented it to Arya. You decide, Reed told Arya, handing her his business card. Our train leaves from platform 12 in 10 minutes. If you'd like to accept, we'll see you there. If not, I understand completely. As they walked away, Sophia waving goodbye over her shoulder, Reed wondered if he'd overstepped. His offer had been impulsive, unusual for a man who calculated most decisions carefully. Something about Arya's situation had triggered both his protective instincts and his business sense. Her marketing expertise was exactly what Reed Innovations needed, and her current circumstance might make her open to relocating to Boston. They were settling into their first-class seats when Arya appeared at the train car entrance, overnight bag clutched tightly. Sophia spotted her first, beaming with delight. You came, she exclaimed as Arya made her way to their row. I did, Arya confirmed, her expression a mixture of relief and lingering uncertainty. Thank you for the invitation. Reed stood to help stow her bag. The practical choice, he observed quietly. The only choice, really, Arya admitted, though I did buy my own ticket. I need to maintain some independence in this disaster. As the train pulled away from the station, Reed made a decision. Since we'll be in Boston anyway, would you consider a professional proposition? Arya looked at him questioningly. What kind of proposition? Reed Innovations' marketing department needs new leadership, someone who understands both the technical aspects of our products and how to communicate their value to everyday consumers. He watched her reaction carefully. Based on our conversation, your background seems exceptionally well suited. Arya's expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. Are you offering me a job out of pity? I don't make business decisions based on emotion, Reed stated flatly. Our previous marketing director left 2 months ago. We've interviewed 12 candidates, none with your specific expertise in tech transition marketing. Your academic credentials and insights about our campaign suggest you could be precisely what we need. But you barely know me, Arya protested. I know enough to recognize potential value, Reed countered, and I'm not offering a position outright. I'm suggesting you interview with our team while in Boston. If there's mutual interest, we proceed. If not, no harm done. Sophia had fallen asleep against the window, allowing their conversation a measure of privacy. Why would you do this? Arya asked, genuine confusion in her voice. Reed considered his answer carefully. Because recognizing opportunity in unexpected places built my company. Because talent shouldn't be wasted due to personal setbacks. And because everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. He paused. The question is, are you ready to consider a completely different future than the one you planned? Arya gazed out the window at the passing landscape, symbolically watching her old life recede into the distance. 24 hours ago, I was getting my hair done for my wedding. Now I'm on a train to Boston with strangers considering a job I never applied for. She turned back to Reed, a new resolve in her eyes. Yes, I'll interview. At this point, unexpected opportunities are all I have left. Isn't it fascinating how quickly life can change? One moment, Arya was preparing to walk down the aisle toward a future she thought was certain. The next, she was on a train with strangers who might hold the key to a completely different path. If you're enjoying this incredible story of fate's unexpected twists, take a moment right now to hit that like button. Your engagement tells YouTube this content matters, helping our channel reach more people who might need to hear this message of hope and new beginnings. Have you ever experienced a moment when what seemed like your worst day actually opened the door to something better? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join our storytelling family by clicking subscribe and turning on notifications so you never miss our weekly true stories of resilience, love, and life's remarkable turning points. Now let's return to Arya, Reed, and little Sophia as they arrive in Boston, where professional opportunity and personal connection are about to intertwine in ways none of them could have anticipated. The Boston headquarters of Reed Innovations occupied the top 15 floors of a gleaming glass tower overlooking the harbor. 2 weeks after her impromptu train ride, Arya stood in the soaring lobby, her borrowed wedding dress replaced by a carefully chosen navy suit, the first purchase from her advance signing bonus. The interview process had been intense, 6 hours of meetings with department heads, presentations to the executive team, and a final one-on-one with Reed himself. Her marketing vision for the company's new consumer neural interface had impressed them all, particularly her strategy for translating complex technology into relatable benefits. "You understand something essential that our previous team missed," Reed had told her during their final meeting. "People don't buy technology, they buy better versions of themselves." The job offer had come the next day, marketing director with a salary that exceeded her previous position by 40%. The relocation package included temporary housing and assistance finding a permanent residence. It was more than generous, it was life-changing. Now, riding the elevator to the 42nd floor for her first day, Arya battled equal measures of excitement and terror. She had fled to Boston in a wedding dress, tears streaming down her face. Now she was returning as a professional with purpose. The symmetry wasn't lost on her. "Miss Bennett, welcome to Reed Innovations," the receptionist greeted her. "Mr. Reed asked me to show you to your office before this morning's orientation." Her office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows, contained a welcome basket and a small envelope. Inside was a child's drawing, stick figures of 3 people and several penguins signed in crayon from Sophia. "Good luck today." The simple gesture steadied her nerves. This wasn't just a fresh start professionally, it was a reminder that kindness could appear in unexpected moments. Her first week passed in a whirlwind of meetings, presentations, and getting to know her team. Reed had assembled brilliant minds but lacked cohesion, engineers who couldn't translate their vision, creatives who didn't understand the technology, and analysts drowning in data without extracting meaningful insights. "They're operating in silos," Arya told Reed during their Friday review meeting. "Each group excels individually but struggles to connect with the others." Reed nodded, his expression thoughtful. "What's your solution?" "Immersion workshops," she proposed. "Marketing team spends time in R&D. Engineers attend focus groups. Everyone experiences the product from the consumer perspective." "Sounds inefficient," Reed challenged, though his tone suggested interest rather than dismissal. "Short-term, yes," Arya acknowledged. "Long-term, it creates a unified vision and common language. The BrainLink interface deserves marketing as sophisticated as its technology." Reed studied her for a moment before nodding. "Implement it. You have full authority to restructure processes as needed." The vote of confidence bolstered her resolve. By week 3, Arya had reorganized the department, initiated cross-functional teams, and begun developing a campaign that would translate Reed Innovations' groundbreaking neural interface into a product everyday consumers could understand and desire. When Reed stopped by her office late one evening to find her still working, surrounded by concept boards and market research, he seemed pleased but concerned. "Building a new life doesn't mean sacrificing work-life balance," he advised. "Take it from someone who learned that lesson the hard way." Arya looked up from her notes, surprised by the personal observation. "I'm not overworking to escape," she assured him. "I'm working because for the first time in years I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. There's a difference." Reed's usual reserve softened momentarily. "Good. Keep that perspective. It's valuable." As he turned to leave, Arya called after him. "Reed, thank you. Not just for the job, but for seeing me as more than a crisis in a wedding dress." "You were never just that," he replied simply before disappearing down the hallway. Boston in autumn proved the perfect backdrop for Arya's personal reconstruction. The city's brick buildings and winding streets felt nothing like her previous home, offering no painful reminders or chance encounters with wedding guests who'd witnessed her humiliation. Her temporary corporate apartment served its purpose, but after 6 weeks, Arya found a small but charming one-bedroom in Beacon Hill. The historic building with its uneven floors and ornate moldings required her to purchase all new furniture, a task that became unexpectedly therapeutic. "Every item is completely my choice," she told her mother during one of their weekly calls. "No compromises, no considering someone else's taste. Just what I want." "That sounds lonely," her mother had replied, still struggling to understand Arya's seemingly abrupt life change. "It's not lonely, Mom. It's liberating." And it was. From selecting a blue velvet sofa that Dominic would have hated to arranging her books by color rather than alphabetically, each decision reinforced her autonomy. The apartment gradually became an external reflection of her internal rebuilding, thoughtfully curated, occasionally eclectic, but undeniably hers. The emotional reconstruction proved more challenging than the physical. Some mornings, Arya woke with a momentary disorientation, reaching for someone who wasn't there. Some evenings, the silence of her apartment felt crushing rather than peaceful. And occasionally, a casual mention of weddings or relationships would send her heart racing, grief and anger resurging unexpectedly. Healing isn't linear, her therapist, another new beginning, reminded her. Give yourself permission to feel whatever emerges. Gradually, Aria established routines that anchored her days. Morning runs along the Charles River, Sunday farmers markets, virtual game nights with college friends who'd stood by her through the wedding disaster, a cooking class where she made new acquaintances unconnected to her past. Her first major victory came 3 months after arriving in Boston when she received an email from Dominic. The subject line, "Can we talk?" once would have sent her spiraling. Now, she read it calmly, considered her response, and wrote back a single paragraph. "I'm building a new life that suits me better than our old one ever did. There's nothing to discuss. I wish you well, but please don't contact me again." Hitting send brought no dramatic catharsis, just quiet satisfaction. Progress, she realized, sometimes manifested not in grand moments, but in the absence of pain where it once would have existed. At work, her marketing campaign for the BrainLink neural interface gained momentum. Focus groups responded enthusiastically to her approach, positioning the technology not as a device, but as an extension of human capability. "Your mind, amplified," became the tagline that carried Reed innovations into mainstream consumer awareness. Reed himself commented on the transformation during a board presentation. "Ms. Bennett has achieved in 4 months what we've attempted unsuccessfully for 2 years, translating our technology into human terms without sacrificing its integrity." The professional validation strengthened her personal resolve. Aria was rebuilding not just a life, but a better version of the one she'd planned, one with greater authenticity and purpose than she'd ever imagined while planning her wedding. Sophia Reed became an unexpected constant in Aria's new life. What began as occasional visits to her father's office evolved into regular encounters that both looked forward to. "Dad says you're making his brain computer famous," Sophia announced during one early visit, climbing onto the chair across from Aria's desk. "I'm trying," Aria smiled, charmed by the 6-year-old's directness. "Is that why you're visiting today? Professional consultation?" Sophia shook her head solemnly. "No. Mrs. Chen has a doctor appointment, so Dad said I could do homework in the special room while he finishes meetings." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "But the special room is boring. You have better markers." Thus began their Thursday routine. While Reed attended executive committee meetings, Sophia camped in Aria's office, ostensibly doing homework but usually engaging Aria in conversation about everything from planetary orbits to the social politics of first grade. "Melissa says she's my best friend but then plays with Emma at recess," Sophia confided one afternoon, her expression troubled. "Dad says I should talk to her about it, but talking about feelings is hard." "Very hard," Aria agreed, setting aside budget projections to give Sophia her full attention. "Would you like to practice what you might say?" Sophia nodded eagerly, and they spent the next 20 minutes role-playing different approaches. When Reed arrived to collect his daughter, he found them giggling as Aria played the part of a dramatically apologetic Melissa. "I see homework is progressing well," he observed dryly, though his expression held more amusement than disapproval. "We're studying communication skills," Aria explained with a straight face. "Very important for future business leaders." Reed's eyes crinkled at the corners, his version of a full smile. "Indeed. Sophia, gather your things. We're meeting Dr. Abramson for dinner." Sophia packed her backpack but paused before leaving. "Can Aria come too?" "She's never tried Ethiopian food, Dad. That's educational neglect." The term, clearly repeated from something she'd heard, made both adults stifle laughter. "I'm sure Ms. Bennett has plans," Reed began. "Actually, I don't," Aria admitted. "But I wouldn't want to intrude on your family time." Sophia looked between them expectantly. After a moment's hesitation, Reed nodded. "We'd be pleased if you joined us. Sophia's right. Dr. Abramson's restaurant is exceptional." That dinner marked a shift in their relationship. Outside the office, conversation flowed more naturally. Sophia delighted in teaching Aria how to eat with injera bread, while Reed revealed a more relaxed side, sharing stories of Sophia's toddler years and his own misadventures in single parenthood. "He tried to do my hair for school pictures," Sophia reported gleefully. "It looked like birds made a nest." "The photographer suggested retakes," Reed admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "I've since mastered basic braiding, though anything beyond that exceeds my capabilities." "I could show you some simple styles," Aria offered. "My niece has used me as practice for years." The following weekend, Aria found herself in Reed's kitchen, demonstrating French braids and bun techniques while Sophia sat patiently and Reed watched with intense concentration, as though memorizing steps for a critical business presentation. These moments accumulated gradually. A museum outing when Sophia studied Egyptian history, Reed inviting Aria to Sophia's school science fair, impromptu weekend excursions to nearby beaches or parks. Nothing explicitly stated, just a natural evolution of three lives intersecting with increasing frequency. "Are you and my dad friends?" Sophia asked one afternoon while they waited for Reed to finish a phone call before their planned aquarium visit. Arya considered the question carefully. "Yes, I think we are. Is that okay with you?" Sophia nodded, adding perceptively, "He smiles more when you're here. Not big smiles like other dads, but his eyes get happy." The observation caught Arya off guard. She'd noticed Reed's reserve gradually easing around her, but hadn't considered how it might appear to his observant daughter. "Your dad is a good person," Arya said simply. "I'm glad we're friends." "Me too," Sophia agreed, squeezing Arya's hand. "You make good hot chocolate and know about penguins and don't talk to me like I'm a baby. That's what friends do." When Reed joined them moments later, he found them with heads bent together, giggling over something on Sophia's tablet. The sight stopped him momentarily, an unreadable expression crossing his face before he cleared his throat to announce his presence. "Ready for sea creatures?" he asked. "Ready," they answered in unison, then laughed at the coincidence. As they walked toward the elevator, Sophia between them, Arya caught Reed watching her with an intensity that sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. For the first time since arriving in Boston, she allowed herself to acknowledge a simple truth. Her heart was healing, and in that healing, making room for new possibilities she hadn't dared consider. 6 months into her Boston life, Arya received a hand-delivered envelope at her office. Inside was a card decorated with planets and stars, the handwriting unmistakably Sophia's. "You are invited to my 7th birthday party. Saturday at 2. Dad says to write, 'It's at our house, please come. I want to show you my telescope.'" At the bottom, in Reed's precise handwriting, a black tie optional, astronaut costume preferred. The invitation brought an immediate smile to Arya's face. Though she'd spent considerable time with Sophia and occasionally Reed over the past months, she hadn't yet visited their home. The boundary between professional colleague and personal friend had remained deliberately ambiguous. When Saturday arrived, Arya found herself standing before an elegant brownstone in Beacon Hill, just 8 blocks from her own apartment. She carried a carefully wrapped package, a children's book on women astronomers and a beginner's star mapping kit she'd tracked down at a specialty science store. Reed opened the door, looking surprisingly casual in dark jeans and a navy sweater. "You found us," he greeted her, stepping aside to let her enter. "Your directions were excellent," she replied, handing him a bottle of wine she'd brought along with Sophia's gift. "For after the children's festivities, thoughtful," he noted with appreciation. "Fair warning, we have 6 7-year-olds hopped up on cake and cosmic enthusiasm." Arya laughed as she followed him through the foyer. "Sounds like an adventure." "Arya!" Sophia's excited voice preceded her appearance. She bounded down the hallway wearing a silver astronaut helmet, her party dress twinkling with star sequins. "You came." "I wouldn't miss it," Arya assured her, kneeling to accept the child's enthusiastic hug. "Happy birthday, Space Explorer." The home revealed a different side of Reed than his executive persona suggested. While elegantly appointed, it was clearly designed with Sophia at its center. The living room featured built-in bookshelves filled with an equal mix of business texts and children's literature. A grand piano stood in one corner, sheet music for both classical compositions and simple children's songs arranged neatly on the stand. Photos of Sophia at various ages adorned the walls alongside what appeared to be astronomical charts. The party itself defied Arya's expectations of a billionaire's child's birthday. Rather than an extravagant event with hired entertainment, Reed had created an intimate space celebration. The dining room ceiling was transformed with projected stars and planets. Each child received a mission backpack containing a star chart, flashlight, and space-themed activities. Reed himself led them through astronaut training exercises with the patience of a man accustomed to explaining complex concepts to young minds. "He does this every year," explained Mrs. Chen, Sophia's longtime nanny, as she and Arya watched Reed guiding the children through a game identifying constellations. "Different theme each birthday, always planned entirely by him. That's remarkable," Arya observed, genuinely impressed. Most CEOs would hire event planners. Mrs. Chen nodded knowingly. "Mr. Reed says memories aren't outsourceable. Since Mrs. Reed passed, he's been determined that Sophia never feels her special days are delegated to staff." The casual mention of Reed's late wife caught Arya's attention. Though she knew the basic outline, Elena Reed, brilliant physicist, lost to cancer 3 years ago. Reed rarely mentioned her directly. Later, as the other children departed with their cosmic goodie bags, Sophia insisted on showing Arya her most prized possession, the observatory on the home's top floor. "Dad built it for me and Mom," Sophia explained, leading Arya up a spiral staircase. "Mom loved stars even more than I do." The observatory took Arya's breath away. A glass dome ceiling provided an unobstructed view of the sky, while state-of-the-art telescopes of varying sizes were positioned strategically around the circular room. Star charts and astrophotography lined the walls, interspersed with candid photos of a beautiful dark-haired woman, sometimes alone at a telescope, sometimes with a younger Reed, occasionally holding baby Sophia. This was her special place, Sophia said softly, touching one of the telescopes with reverent familiarity. Now it's mine and Dad's, and yours too, if you want. The simple inclusion brought unexpected emotion to Aria's throat. I'd be honored to share it with you, she managed. When Reed joined them minutes later, he found Aria and Sophia bent over a star chart, heads close together as Sophia explained the constellations visible in each season. Something in his expression shifted as he watched them, a softening around his eyes, a slight relaxation of his perpetually straight shoulders. Successful mission, Commander Sophia? He asked, joining them at the chart table. Affirmative, Sophia nodded seriously. Aria knows Orion, but not Cassiopeia. I'm teaching her. Excellent, Reed approved. Mrs. Chen says it's time for pajamas and one more birthday cookie before bed. After Sophia hugged them both good night, Aria and Reed found themselves alone in the observatory as evening darkened the sky above the glass dome. This room is incredible, Aria said honestly. What a gift you've given her. It was Elena's dream, Reed admitted, adjusting one of the telescopes. She believed understanding the stars gave perspective on earthly problems. Wise woman, Aria commented. She was... Reed's voice carried no sadness, just quiet reverence. She would have liked you, I think. Your directness, your ability to translate complex ideas into accessible ones. Coming from Reed, the comparison felt like an extraordinary compliment. Thank you for including me today, Aria said. It meant a lot. Reed looked at her directly then, his usual reserve momentarily absent. Sophia adores you, and I... He paused, seeming to recalibrate his words. I value the friendship you've extended to both of us. The moment hung between them, waited with unspoken potential, before Reed gestured toward the largest telescope. Would you like to see Jupiter? The visibility is exceptional tonight. As he guided her through adjusting the telescope's focus, his hand briefly covered hers, the casual contact sending an unexpected current through her fingers. If Reed noticed her slight intake of breath, he gave no indication. 3 weeks after the birthday party, Reed appeared at Aria's office door, his expression uncharacteristically uncertain. Do you have a moment? He asked, remaining in the doorway rather than entering. Of course, Aria replied, curious about his formal demeanor. Is everything all right with the Brain Link campaign? This isn't about work, Reed clarified, finally stepping into her office and closing the door. It's about Sophia. Concern immediately flared. Is she okay? She's fine, he assured her quickly. It's about an event at her school. They're hosting a mother-daughter tea next Friday afternoon. Oh, Aria said softly, understanding immediately. Reed ran a hand through his always perfect hair, the gesture revealing rare discomfort. In previous years, she's chosen to skip it. This year, he hesitated. She asked if you might accompany her. The request caught Aria completely off guard. Me? You, Reed confirmed. Her exact words were, Aria understands girl things and makes things not scary. I believe she was referring to your conversations about navigating friendships. Aria felt a rush of emotion, honor mixed with the weight of responsibility. Reed, I'd be happy to go with her, but are you comfortable with this? It's traditionally a mother-daughter event. I'm aware, he acknowledged. If it feels inappropriate or crosses professional boundaries. It's not that, Aria interrupted gently. I'm concerned about Sophia, about managing her expectations of what I can be in her life. Reed considered her words carefully. Sophia understands her mother is gone. She's not looking for a replacement. She's identifying an adult woman she trusts to help her navigate a situation that makes her anxious. Put that way, the invitation seemed both simpler and more profound. Then I would be honored to accompany her, Aria decided. Should I pick her up or... I'll have Mrs. Chen bring her to your office, Reed said, his business efficiency returning now that the awkward request was complete. The event begins at 3. Sophia mentioned something about coordinating outfits, so she may call you this evening to discuss crucial fashion details. Aria couldn't help smiling at his serious delivery of this information. I'll prepare accordingly. As predicted, Sophia called that evening, deeply concerned about the critical choice between floral dresses or matching pantsuits. Their 15-minute planned conversation stretched to nearly an hour, as Sophia's questions evolved from clothing options to social anxieties about the event itself. What if the other girls think it's weird I don't have a mom? She asked, her voice small. Some might, Aria answered honestly. But true friends will understand that families come in all different forms. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to being your special guest. Really? You're not too busy? Never too busy for tea with my favorite astronomer, Arya assured her. When the day arrived, Arya felt unexpectedly nervous as she waited in her office, wearing the agreed-upon light blue dress that would complement Sophia's darker blue one. The significance of being chosen for this role wasn't lost on her. Sophia arrived with Mrs. Chen, practically bouncing with excitement. "Win match," she declared, twirling to display her dress. "And I brought you this." She presented a small box containing a simple silver bracelet with a star charm. "Dad helped me pick it, so we really match." Arya knelt to Sophia's level, genuinely touched. "It's beautiful. Will you help me put it on?" As Sophia carefully fastened the bracelet around Arya's wrist, Mrs. Chen watched with a knowing smile before discreetly stepping outside to give them privacy. The tea itself proved less intimidating than Sophia had feared. Several other girls attended with aunts, grandmothers, or family friends. The school had thoughtfully created a program that celebrated diverse family structures while maintaining the tradition's spirit. When Reed arrived to pick them up afterward, he found them sitting on a bench outside the school, heads bent together as they shared some private joke. The sight stopped him momentarily, an emotion crossing his face too complex to name. "How was it?" he asked as they approached the car. "We had 3 kinds of sandwiches," Sophia reported, climbing into the back seat. "And Arya knew how to fold the napkins into flowers. She taught everyone at our table." Reed's eyes met Arya's over the car roof. "Successful, then?" "Very," she confirmed softly. "Thank you for trusting me with this." "Thank you for being someone I could trust," he replied, his voice equally low. Following the mother-daughter tea, something subtle shifted in Reed and Arya's interactions. Professional discussions carried new undercurrents. Their previously casual friendship gained unspoken awareness, of proximity, of accidental touches, of lingering glances. At work, Reed began seeking her input on matters beyond marketing, strategic acquisitions, investor presentations, even personnel decisions. "I value your perspective," became his frequent refrain, though Arya noticed he rarely sought others' views with equal interest. For her part, Arya found herself increasingly conscious of Reed's presence. She noticed details previously overlooked, how his voice deepened slightly when speaking about subjects he cared deeply about, the tiny scar above his right eyebrow, the way his hands moved with precise elegance when explaining complex concepts. Their colleagues noticed too. Whispers circulated about lengthy closed-door meetings and the CEO's frequent appearances in the marketing department. Arya overheard snippets in the break room. Completely different around her. Never seen him smile before she arrived. Playing with fire mixing business and personal. Arya dismissed the gossip, focusing instead on maintaining professional boundaries while navigating the changing dynamics. If Reed occasionally invited her to join him and Sophia for weekend outings, they were always child-centered activities, museum exhibitions, harbor cruises, concerts in the park. Nothing that could be construed as romantic, yet undeniable moments accumulated. A weekend afternoon at Boston Common, Sophia racing ahead to feed the ducks while Reed and Arya walked behind, their hands accidentally brushing, neither pulling away for several seconds. A late-night strategy session in Reed's office, takeout containers empty between them, conversation drifting from marketing objectives to personal philosophies as the city lights glowed beyond his windows. Sophia's school play, where they sat together in proud parent-like solidarity, automatically turning to each other to share smiles at Sophia's earnest performance. The most telling moment came unexpectedly during a company gala celebrating Reed Innovation's 15th anniversary. Arya, wearing a floor-length emerald gown, was discussing campaign metrics with investors when she felt Reed's presence before she saw him. "May I interrupt?" he asked the group, receiving immediate deference from the executives. "Miss Bennett, would you join me? There's someone who's been asking to see you." Guiding her away with a light touch at the small of her back, Reed led her to a quiet corner where Sophia sat with Mrs. Chen, permitted to attend the first hour of the celebration before bedtime. "Arya, you look like a princess for real," Sophia exclaimed, eyes wide with appreciation. "Thank you," Arya laughed, twirling to show off her dress. "You look pretty spectacular yourself." As Sophia chattered excitedly about the dessert table, Arya became aware of Reed watching her, his expression unguarded in a way she'd never seen before. When their eyes met, he didn't look away, holding her gaze with an intensity that made her breath catch. Mrs. Chen, missing nothing, discreetly suggested Sophia should say goodnight before leaving. As the child hugged Arya, Reed stood close enough that his arm brushed against hers, a seemingly accidental contact that felt deliberately maintained. "Will you come for Sunday breakfast tomorrow?" Sophia asked hopefully. Dad's making his famous pancakes. Reed cleared his throat. Sophia, Miss Bennett might have plans. I'd love to, Arya interrupted, looking directly at Reed. If that's all right with your dad. Something flickered in Reed's eyes, surprise followed by unmistakable pleasure. More than all right, he confirmed, his voice carrying a new warmth. We'll expect you at 9. Later that evening, as Arya gathered her wrap to leave, Reed appeared beside her in the coat check area. Thank you for saying yes to breakfast, he said quietly. Sophia will be delighted. Just Sophia? Arya asked, surprising herself with the directness of the question. Reed's expression turned serious, considering. No, he finally admitted. Not just Sophia. The simple acknowledgement hung between them, neither ready to define it further, but both recognizing something important had been voiced. As he helped her with her wrap, his fingers lingered briefly at her shoulders, the contact sending warmth through the thin fabric. Until tomorrow, Reed said, his usually confident voice carrying a question. Until tomorrow, Arya confirmed, offering a smile that answered far more than his spoken words. As she stepped into the cool evening air, Arya acknowledged what she'd been carefully avoiding for weeks, somewhere between professional respect and comfortable friendship. Her feelings for Reed had evolved into something far more complex and exhilarating. The question now was whether either of them was ready to explore what those feelings might mean. Sunday breakfast with Sophia turned into an afternoon at the Museum of Science, which evolved into a week of increasingly personal text messages between Arya and Reed. Their communications, once limited to work matters or Sophia-related logistics, now included book recommendations, articles that reminded one of the other, and occasional glimpses into their daily thoughts. On Thursday evening, Arya's phone lit up with a message that made her pulse quicken. Sophia is staying with my parents this weekend. Would you consider having dinner with me on Saturday? Just the two of us. The deliberate phrasing, not a work dinner, not a casual outing with Sophia, left no ambiguity about Reed's intention. Arya found herself rereading the message several times before responding, and liked that very much. His reply came quickly, and I'll pick you up at 7. When Saturday arrived, Arya spent an uncharacteristic amount of time preparing, trying on multiple outfits before settling on a simple burgundy dress that complemented her dark hair. The doorbell rang precisely at 7. Reed's punctuality as reliable in personal matters as in business. He stood at her threshold in a charcoal suit without a tie, holding a small bouquet of stargazer lilies. The absence of his usual corporate armor, no briefcase, no tie, hair slightly less controlled than its workday perfection, signaled a conscious step away from their professional relationship. These reminded me of the observatory, he explained, handing her the flowers. Stars and astronomy being a recurring theme in our interactions. They're beautiful, Arya said, touched by the thoughtfulness behind the gesture. Please come in while I put them in water. Reed entered her apartment, his assessing gaze taking in the space she'd created for herself. Your home suits you, he observed, noting the art on her walls, abstract pieces in bold colors, nothing like the traditional decor of his own home. That's quite a compliment coming from someone who notices details the way you do, she replied, arranging the lilies in a vase. I notice everything about you, Reed said quietly, the directness catching her off guard. I have from the beginning. The simple admission shifted the atmosphere between them, acknowledging the gravitational pull that had been drawing them closer for months. Reed drove them to a small restaurant overlooking Boston Harbor, tucked away on a side street far from the tourist paths. The owner is a friend, he explained as they were led to a private corner table with a spectacular water view. I thought you might appreciate somewhere we could talk without running into half of Reed Innovation's executive team. The consideration revealed his awareness of their potentially complicated situation, the CEO dating a director who reported to him, even if indirectly through the COO. I've been wondering if this crosses a line, Arya admitted once they were seated. Wine poured between them. Professionally speaking, I've already spoken with the board and HR, Reed replied, characteristically thorough. Your position has been restructured to report directly to Christine as COO, with a documentation trail establishing this change occurred before tonight. Arya raised an eyebrow. You were that confident I'd say yes to dinner? Not confident, Reed corrected, a rare smile softening his features. Hopeful, and prudent regardless of the outcome. The dinner that followed felt markedly different from their many previous meals shared with Sophia or colleagues. Without professional topics or his daughter's engaging presence as buffers, they faced each other directly, two adults acknowledging the connection that had been building between them. Their conversation flowed easily, covering literature they'd enjoyed, places they hoped to visit, and philosophical questions about technology's role in human connection, ironically given Reed's company focused on neural interfaces. The formality that often characterized Reed gradually relaxed, revealing glimpses of dry humor and passionate opinions usually hidden beneath his controlled exterior. "You're different tonight," Arya observed as they shared a dessert, the city lights reflecting on the harbor beyond their window. "More human?" Reed suggested with self-deprecating awareness. "Present," she decided. "As if you're fully here, not mentally reviewing quarterly projections or acquisition strategies." "I've spent years compartmentalizing," Reed acknowledged. "Work Reed, father Reed, and whatever remains buried beneath those roles. Few people have seen beyond those carefully maintained walls, and now?" Arya asked, the question carrying weight beyond the immediate conversation. Reed reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers in a deliberate gesture. "Now I find myself wanting to dismantle walls rather than maintain them, at least with you." The admission, simple yet profound from such a guarded man, affected Arya deeply. When his hand fully covered hers, she turned her palm upward, their fingers intertwining in silent understanding. Later, as they walked along the waterfront, the spring evening cool enough to justify standing close, Reed asked the question that had clearly been on his mind. "Are we being reckless, Arya? You're still healing from significant betrayal. I haven't opened myself to anyone since Elena, and there's Sophia to consider." The mention of his daughter gave Arya pause. "Sophia is precisely why we need to be certain. She's already lost one important woman in her life. I wouldn't want to become another." Reed stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "That concern alone tells me everything about your character. And it's exactly why I trust this. Whatever this becomes won't be a mistake." When they reached her apartment door at evening's end, the inevitable tension of a first date's conclusion hung between them. Reed solved the dilemma with characteristic directness, gently cupping her face between his hands. "May I?" he asked simply. Arya's answer was to close the distance between them. His kiss was controlled at first, deliberate, careful, until she responded with greater warmth. Something shifted then, reserve giving way to genuine passion as his arms encircled her completely. When they finally separated, Reed rested his forehead against hers, his breathing uneven. "I should go," he murmured, though his arms remained around her waist. "Probably," Arya agreed, making no move to step away. His smile, a full, genuine smile rarely seen at Reed Innovations, transformed his serious face. "I'll call you tomorrow." "I'll answer," she promised, returning his smile with equal warmth. Their first date opened floodgates of connection that had been building for months. Over the following weeks they established a rhythm. Dinner at her apartment when Sophia stayed with grandparents, family outings when she was home, and occasional lunches away from the office when schedules allowed. During these moments together, their histories gradually unfolded, each sharing pieces of themselves previously kept private. Reed revealed his modest beginnings, the son of a community college professor and school nurse in western Massachusetts, his brilliance earning him scholarships that his parents supplemented with second jobs. His drive came not from ambition for wealth, but from a deep-seated need to create something meaningful, to solve problems others couldn't see. The neural interface wasn't about making billions, he explained one evening as they sat in his observatory, the night sky clear above them. It was about helping Elena's colleague who'd lost motor function after a stroke. The commercial applications came later. Arya shared her own path, growing up in a family that valued appearance over authenticity, learning to craft perfect external narratives while burying her true feelings. Her marketing career had begun as a way to utilize those skills constructively, translating complex realities into accessible stories. With Dominic, I was still doing it, she admitted, crafting the perfect relationship narrative, even as the actual connection was falling apart. I ignored warning signs because they didn't fit the story I wanted to believe. "And now?" Reed asked, his question gentle but direct. "Now I'm learning to value truth over convenient fictions," she said, "even when it's messy or uncertain." They discovered unexpected commonalities beneath their apparent differences. Both were oldest children who felt responsible for others' happiness. Both processed emotions through intellectual analysis before allowing themselves to feel fully. Both valued competence and independence to degrees that sometimes hindered vulnerability. Their differences emerged too. Reed's methodical approach to decisions contrasting with Arya's more intuitive leaps, his preference for established routines balancing her openness to spontaneity. These differences created occasional friction, but more often complemented each other, each recognizing valuable perspective in the other's approach. The most significant conversations often happened in ordinary moments, cooking dinner together in Reed's kitchen, walking through Boston Public Garden on Sunday afternoons, sitting side by side as they worked on separate projects in comfortable silence. Elena and I connected intellectually first, Reed shared one evening. We built a foundation of mutual respect and shared interests. The romance developed later. With us, it seems to be happening simultaneously, Arya observed. The professional respect, the friendship, and the personal attraction all evolving together. Reed considered this. Does that concern you, that it's happening differently? No, Arya said thoughtfully. It reminds me that there isn't one correct path to meaningful connection. Each relationship has its own shape. Her words seemed to ease something in Reed. Permission, perhaps, to build something new without feeling it diminished what came before. Despite their deepening connection, doubts occasionally surfaced for both of them. Reed worried about Sophia becoming attached to someone who might not remain permanent in their lives. Arya questioned whether she was truly ready for a relationship after her devastating almost wedding. Both wondered if their professional relationship would inevitably complicate their personal one. These concerns emerged in quiet moments, Reed growing distant during a dinner after Sophia asked innocent questions about when Arya would live with them, or Arya pulling back after overhearing colleagues speculating about her rapid rise in the company. People will always talk, Reed assured her when she finally voiced her concern about office perception. Your work stands on its merit. Anyone who matters knows that. It's not just about me, Arya countered. Your leadership is affected by how this appears. The board approved our relationship disclosure weeks ago, Reed interrupted gently. My personal life has never affected my business judgment, and no one who knows me would suggest otherwise. Her most significant doubt surfaced after receiving a wedding invitation from a college friend. The elegant envelope triggered unexpected anxiety, memories of her own canceled wedding flooding back, along with fears about rushing into another relationship too quickly. When she grew quiet during their evening together, Reed noticed immediately. What's troubling you? He asked, his perception of her moods now finely tuned. Arya hesitated before showing him the invitation. It brought everything back. The dress, the plans, the humiliation. And it made me question if I'm seeing clearly now, or just running towards something safe after being hurt. Reed listened without defensiveness, his expression thoughtful. Those are valid questions, he acknowledged. What does your instinct tell you? That what I feel for you is entirely different, she admitted. With Dominic, I was fitting myself into someone else's life. With you, she paused, finding the right words. With you, I'm becoming more fully myself, not less. Reed took her hand, his touch grounding. I don't need immediate certainty, Arya. We can move at whatever pace feels right. His patience reassured her, the absence of pressure creating space for genuine choice rather than reaction. Reed had his own moment of doubt when his mother-in-law, Victoria, visited and questioned his relationship with Arya. After dinner, when Sophia was in bed, Victoria confronted him directly. Elena's been gone just 3 years, and already you're replacing her? What message does that send to Sophia? Reed shared this conversation with Arya the following evening, his conflict evident. She believes I'm dishonoring Elena's memory, he explained, pacing Arya's living room. Part of me fears she's right. Arya listened, giving him space to process. What would Elena want for you and Sophia? She finally asked. Not what Victoria wants or what obligation dictates, but what the woman you loved would want. Reed stopped pacing, the question striking him profoundly. She would want us to be happy, he said quietly. She made me promise not to shut down, to keep my heart open for Sophia's sake. Then perhaps the true way to honor her memory is to keep that promise, Arya suggested gently. The conversation marked a turning point for Reed. The following weekend, he took Arya to the cemetery where Elena was buried, a place he'd previously visited only with Sophia. I wanted her to know you, he explained simply as they stood before the elegant headstone. And I wanted you to know this part of me too. The gesture, bringing these separate pieces of his life together, spoke volumes about his commitment to genuine integration rather than compartmentalization. As spring turned to summer, their relationship strengthened through these moments of vulnerability rather than despite them. Each doubt faced honestly, each fear acknowledged openly, created deeper trust between them. One evening, as they sat on Arya's balcony watching the sunset, Reed voiced a realization. I spent years believing that loving someone meant risking devastating loss, so it was safer not to begin. What changed? Arya asked, leaning against his shoulder. I realized I was already in the middle before I recognized the beginning, he replied, his arm tightening around her, and that the risk of missing this would be far greater than any fear of future pain. Arya turned to face him fully. Are we really doing this? Building something together despite all the complications? Reed's answer was both simple and profound. I think we've been building it from the moment Sophia spotted you at the train station. We just didn't know what shape it would take. As the city lights began twinkling below them, Arya rested her head against Reed's chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. The future remained unwritten, but for the first time since her wedding day disaster, she felt completely certain about the path she was choosing, not because it was safe or expected, but because it was authentically right. As Reed and Aria's relationship progressed from private dinners to occasional public appearances together, whispers spread through Reed Innovations like wildfire. Despite their professional discretion and the official HR documentation of their relationship, speculation ran rampant. "Did you see them in the executive dining room yesterday?" Aria overheard one morning in the women's restroom. He actually smiled. "I've worked here 5 years and never seen that." "She must be incredible in bed," another voice responded with a snicker. Going from abandoned bride to CEO's girlfriend in less than a year, Aria froze in the stall, her chest tightening. They had no idea she was there. "Please," a third voice chimed in. "She completely revamped our marketing strategy and landed us the NeuroCorp partnership. Reed didn't build a billion-dollar company by thinking with his—" Still, the first voice interrupted. "You don't think it's convenient? Pretty young executive catches the widower's eye, gets promoted, then starts dating him?" Aria waited until they left before emerging, her composure intact but her mind racing. She'd anticipated some gossip, but hadn't expected such explicit assumptions about her motives or abilities. Later that day, she noticed subtle changes in colleagues' behavior. Conversations halting when she entered meeting rooms, evaluative glances during presentations, excessive formality from team members who'd previously been friendly. Reed, with his focus on outcomes rather than social dynamics, remained oblivious until Aria raised the issue during dinner at her apartment. "It doesn't matter what people think," he said dismissively, serving pasta he'd prepared. "Your work speaks for itself. It matters if it affects my ability to lead my team effectively," Aria countered. "Marketing depends on collaboration and trust. If people believe I've slept my way to my position—" "That's absurd," Reed interrupted, genuinely outraged. "You were hired for your expertise months before we began dating. Your campaigns have increased our consumer market share by 47%. Anyone suggesting otherwise is displaying poor judgment." His logical approach, while well-intentioned, missed the emotional impact of being the subject of speculation. "I'm not looking for you to fix this," Aria explained patiently. "I'm sharing how it feels to walk into rooms where people stop talking when I appear." Reed set down his fork, making a visible effort to move from problem-solving to empathy. "I'm sorry, that must be incredibly difficult." After a thoughtful pause, he added, "What would help?" His willingness to listen rather than immediately propose solutions touched her. "Honestly, just acknowledging it's happening and understanding why it bothers me. I'll handle the professional side myself." And she did. The following week, Aria called a department meeting where she directly addressed the elephant in the room. "I'm aware there's been discussion about my personal relationship with Mr. Reed," she stated calmly. "Yes, we are dating. Yes, this began after my professional role was well established. No, it doesn't affect my expectations of excellence from this team or my commitment to our collective success." She paused, making eye contact with key individuals. "I welcome questions about our marketing strategy, campaign metrics, or team structure. My personal life is not up for discussion during work hours. Now, let's review the Q3 projections." The direct approach earned her respect. Gossip didn't disappear entirely, but its power diminished when brought into the open. Within weeks, her team's focus returned to their impressive results rather than their director's dating life. Reed, for his part, made subtle adjustments, maintaining professional distance at work while privately expressing his admiration for how she'd handled the situation. "You faced it head on," he noted with appreciation. "Many would have either ignored it or expected me to intervene." "Neither approach would have established my leadership," Aria replied. "Besides, if I'm going to be with the CEO, I need to show I can manage difficult situations independently." Her matter-of-fact reference to their future together didn't escape Reed's notice, his expression softening visibly. "And are you going to be with the CEO long-term?" Aria smiled, reaching for his hand across the table. "I'm certainly considering it, despite the complications." If workplace gossip presented a professional challenge, Victoria Lancaster, Reed's former mother-in-law, posed a more personal one. Elena's mother had initially tolerated Aria as Reed's colleague and Sophia's occasional companion. Learning of their romantic relationship transformed her cordial acceptance into open hostility. The confrontation occurred during Sophia's end-of-year school concert. Reed had saved seats for both Aria and Victoria, not anticipating the tension that would result from their first meeting since his relationship with Aria became official. "Elena's been gone barely 3 years," Victoria whispered harshly as they waited for the performance to begin. "And already you're playing house with her replacement." Reed tensed beside Aria. "This isn't the time or place, Victoria. When is the appropriate time to discuss you erasing my daughter's memory? Victoria pressed, her voice low but intense. Sophia barely mentions Elena anymore. She's too busy talking about adventures with Arya. Arya felt Reed preparing to defend her and gently touched his arm. May I? She asked quietly. When he nodded, she turned to Victoria. Mrs. Lancaster, I understand your concern comes from love for Elena and Sophia. I want you to know I would never presume to replace Elena's memory. From everything Reed and Sophia have told me, she was irreplaceable. I'm not trying to erase her presence in their lives. I'm simply hoping to create new happiness alongside it. Victoria studied her silently, her expression hard to read. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed for the performance, Sophia's class taking the stage for their musical number. The exchange left all three adults tense, though they maintained composure for Sophia's sake, applauding enthusiastically when she completed her recorder solo. Grandma, did you hear my part? Sophia asked Victoria afterward, bouncing with excitement. You were wonderful, darling, Victoria assured her, genuine affection breaking through her earlier iciness. As Victoria bent to hug Sophia, Arya noticed something that hadn't been evident during their brief confrontation, how much Sophia physically resembled her maternal grandmother. The same expressive eyes, the same animated gestures. No wonder Victoria felt protective. Sophia was her living connection to her daughter. Understanding this shifted Arya's perspective from defensiveness to empathy. When Sophia ran off to greet classmates, Arya turned to Victoria again. Mrs. Lancaster, I've been meaning to ask. Sophia mentioned Elena loved astronomy. I've been helping her learn the constellations, but I'm sure there are family stories about her mother's interest that would mean so much more. Would you consider sharing some of those with me so I can make sure those connections aren't lost? The request, sincere in its acknowledgement of Victoria's unique role, visibly caught the older woman off guard. She glanced at Reed, who looked equally surprised by Arya's approach. Elena built her first telescope at 12, Victoria said finally, her voice softening slightly. Stayed up 3 nights straight to see a meteor shower. Sophia has that same determination. I've noticed, Arya smiled. She wouldn't give up until she spotted Saturn's rings last month, even though it meant staying awake past midnight on a school night. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Not acceptance exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. Reed told me you've been taking her to the mother-daughter events at school. Only when she asks, Arya clarified, and always with the understanding that I'm not replacing anyone, just being another adult who cares about her. Victoria nodded once, a reluctant acknowledgement if not approval. Sophia seems happy, she conceded, as though the observation surprised her. She is, Reed confirmed, joining the conversation. That's what Elena would have wanted most. The mention of her daughter brought tears to Victoria's eyes, quickly blinked away. Yes, well, she has her father's science mind, but her mother's heart. Always room for more love there. It wasn't explicit acceptance, but it was progress. In the months that followed, Victoria's resistance gradually softened. She began including Arya in occasional family photos, asked about her work, and even shared stories about Elena unprompted. The breakthrough came when Sophia needed emergency appendix surgery, and Victoria arrived at the hospital to find Arya maintaining a calm vigil alongside Reed. You didn't have to stay through the night, Victoria observed, handing Arya a coffee from the hospital cafeteria. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, Arya replied honestly. Victoria studied her for a long moment. Elena would have liked you, she said finally. She valued authenticity above all else. Coming from Victoria, it was the highest possible compliment. 9 months into her role at Reed Innovations, Arya's revitalized marketing strategy had drawn industry attention. The BrainLink campaign specifically had won 3 major advertising awards and been featured in Harvard Business Review as a case study in technology messaging. This visibility led to an unexpected email from Marcus Daniels, CEO of Visionary Tech, Reed Innovations' largest competitor, an MS Bennett. Your work transforming Reed Innovations' market approach has been remarkable. I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity as our Chief Marketing Officer, reporting directly to me. The compensation package would represent a significant advancement from your current position. Discretion assured, Marcus Daniels. The offer was flattering and concerning in equal measure. Visionary Tech was offering a C-suite position with nearly double her current salary, plus equity options that could be worth millions if the company continued its growth trajectory. Professionally, it represented the career leap she'd been working toward for years. Personally, it created an impossible situation. Taking the job would mean working for Reed's direct competitor, a fundamental conflict neither could ignore. For 3 days, Arya kept the email to herself, weighing options and implications. She could decline immediately, prioritizing her relationship with Reed. She could use the offer to negotiate a promotion within Reed Innovations, or she could accept, recognizing that her career advancement might require difficult personal choices. The dilemma consumed her thoughts until Reed noticed her distraction during dinner at his home. "Something's troubling you," he observed after Sophia went to bed. "You've been somewhere else all evening." Arya hesitated, then decided complete transparency was the only reasonable approach. She handed him her phone with the email displayed. Reed read it silently, his expression carefully neutral. "Impressive offer," he said finally. "Marcus has good taste in executive talent." "I haven't responded," Arya explained quickly. "I wanted to process it myself first." "Are you considering it?" Reed asked, his tone deliberately even. "I'm analyzing what it represents," she answered honestly. "The career advancement, yes, the validation of my work, but also what accepting would mean for us." Reed was quiet for a long moment, his analytical mind visibly working through implications. "May I ask what you're leaning toward?" "Staying," Arya said without hesitation. "But I don't want to make that choice out of fear or obligation. And I don't want you to think I'd use this as leverage." Reed's posture relaxed slightly. "I know you better than that." He handed her phone back. "For what it's worth, Christine has been discussing restructuring our executive team. Your name was already being considered for a CMO position here." "Was being considered, or is being considered?" Arya asked, catching the distinction. "The conversation predates Daniels' email," Reed clarified, "but I've deliberately kept myself separate from those discussions to avoid any appearance of favoritism." "So what happens now?" Arya pressed. "I decline Visionary's offer and hope Reed Innovations eventually promotes me? That feels uncomfortably dependent." Reed considered this carefully. "What if you interviewed with Visionary?" he suggested, surprising her. "Not with intent to accept, but to understand your market value and the role they envision. Meanwhile, I'll ask Christine to accelerate the executive restructuring discussions." "You're suggesting I use the offer as leverage without explicitly doing so," Arya observed, impressed by his pragmatic approach. "I'm suggesting you gather complete information before making a decision," Reed countered, "and acknowledging that your career advancement matters, to you and to me." His willingness to separate his role as CEO from his role as her partner reassured Arya deeply. "I'll schedule the interview," she decided. "Complete transparency between us throughout the process?" "Always," Reed agreed, reaching for her hand. "And Arya, whatever you decide professionally, we'll find a way to make things work personally. I'm not willing to lose you over corporate boundaries." The simple declaration, so direct and certain, resolved her most fundamental concern. With that assurance, she met with Marcus Daniels the following week, discussed Visionary's vision, and gained valuable insight into her professional market position. Ultimately, the situation resolved more elegantly than anticipated. Christine restructured Reed Innovations' executive team, creating a chief experience officer role that encompassed marketing while adding product design and customer engagement, areas Arya had increasingly influenced. The position reported to Christine rather than Reed, maintaining appropriate corporate governance while offering Arya the advancement her talents deserved. When she declined Visionary's offer, Marcus was disappointed but unsurprised. "Reed's a lucky man, professionally and personally," he commented. "But if things ever change, my door remains open." "I appreciate the opportunity," Arya replied diplomatically. "But I've found where I belong." The statement applied equally to her professional role and personal life, a harmony she once thought impossible in the aftermath of her wedding day disaster. "If you're still with me, I want to take a moment to thank you for your attention to this remarkable story. The journey Arya and Reed are navigating shows us something powerful about life's unexpected turns, how doors close and windows open when we least expect them. Have you ever faced a challenge that initially seemed devastating but ultimately led you somewhere better? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you're enjoying this journey of resilience and second chances, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows me to continue bringing these inspiring true stories to light each week. And if you know someone who's going through a difficult time right now, someone who might need a reminder that beautiful beginnings can emerge from painful endings, share this video with them. Sometimes the right story at the right moment can change everything. Now, let's continue with Arya and Reed's journey as they approach a decision that will surprise everyone who thought they knew how this story would end. 15 months after their first meeting at Grand Central Station, Reed invited Arya to his home for what he described as a small celebration of the BrainLink consumer launch. The product's successful debut had exceeded all projections, cementing Reed Innovations' transition from specialized tech provider to household name. Aria arrived to find the house unusually quiet. "Sophia's with my parents for the weekend," Reed explained, taking her coat. "I thought we deserved an evening to ourselves after the launch chaos." Thoughtful, Aria smiled, noticing Reed seemed slightly on edge, unusual for a man whose composure rarely wavered. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," he assured her, checking his watch. "Actually, there's something in the garden I'd like to show you. A small installation I've been working on." "In February?" Aria questioned, raising an eyebrow. "It's freezing outside." Reed handed her a wool wrap. "Trust me." He led her through the house to the back door, pausing before opening it. "Close your eyes," he requested softly. Aria complied, feeling the cool evening air as the door opened. Reed guided her forward carefully, his hand warm against the small of her back. "Okay," he said, his voice unexpectedly tender. "Look." Aria opened her eyes and gasped. The garden had been transformed into a wonderland of light. Thousands of tiny white lights twinkled among the dormant trees and along the stone pathways, creating the illusion of a star-filled sky brought down to earth. Heat lamps placed discreetly throughout the space kept the winter chill at bay, while a small table for two stood at the center, champagne chilling beside it. "Reed," she breathed, taking in the magical scene. "This is extraordinary." "It reminded me of the observatory," he explained, watching her reaction closely. "The stars have been significant for us from the beginning." As they walked along the illuminated path, Aria noticed something unexpected. Small photographs hanging from the branches of trees and bushes, each protected in clear casing against the elements. Moving closer, she realized they told a story, their story. A photo of Grand Central Station, Sophia's birthday party, the mother-daughter tea, weekend outings in Boston. Professional achievements, quiet moments captured without her awareness. The chronological trail of images charted their journey from strangers to something profound. "When did you take all these?" she asked, touched by the effort this must have required. "I've been collecting moments," Reed admitted. "Some I photographed, others Sophia captured, a few from company events. Together, they show the path that led us here." The final photograph stopped Aria short, a picture of her in her wedding dress at the train station, tear-streaked and lost. Beside it hung a handkerchief, preserved in a small frame. "Why this one?" she asked quietly, fingers hovering near the painful memory. Reed stood beside her, his eyes reflecting the surrounding lights. "Because that moment changed everything. If Sophia hadn't spotted you, if you hadn't accepted a cup of hot chocolate from strangers, if you hadn't boarded that train." His voice grew soft. "Sometimes the worst days lead to the best life." The words, so similar to what she'd told herself during dark moments, resonated deeply. As Aria turned to respond, she realized Reed was no longer standing beside her but kneeling on one knee on the illuminated path. In his hand was a small velvet box, open to reveal a ring unlike any Aria had seen before, a central diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires arranged in constellations. "1 year ago today," Reed began, his normally confident voice filled with emotion, "a little girl insisted we help a crying princess at a train station. I had no idea that single moment would completely transform my life." Aria's hand flew to her mouth, eyes widening as she realized the significance of the date. "Exactly 1 year since their first meeting. Before you, I existed rather than lived," Reed continued. "I was functional, successful, a good father, but incomplete in ways I'd stopped noticing. I'd built walls so high around my heart that I couldn't see over them anymore." He took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "You didn't tear those walls down, Aria. You showed me how to open the gate myself. You gave me permission to feel joy again, to imagine a future beyond what I'd resigned myself to accept." Aria felt tears forming, her heart racing as Reed continued. "I'm not perfect. I work too much. I overthink everything. I struggle to express emotions that don't fit into spreadsheets or project plans." His smile turned self-deprecating. "But I promise you this, I will love you completely, honor you daily, and choose you again and again, every morning for the rest of our lives." He lifted the ring slightly. This was designed to mirror the stars visible the night we met. The sapphires formed the exact constellations that were above Grand Central Station at the moment our paths crossed. The thoughtfulness behind the gesture, so perfectly aligned with the significance of astronomy in their relationship, left Aria speechless. "Aria Bennett," Reed said, his voice steadying with certainty. "You came into our lives when we least expected but most needed someone like you. You've brought laughter back into our home and love back into my heart. Will you marry me?" For a moment, Aria stood frozen, overwhelmed by emotion. Memories flashed through her mind, standing abandoned in her wedding dress, throwing her previous engagement ring into the station fountain, vowing never to trust so completely again. Yet here she was, heart open and certain in a way she'd never experienced with Dominic. This wasn't the culmination of societal expectations or relationship timelines. This was a choice, clear-eyed and authentic. She reached down, pulling Reed to his feet. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. His arms encircled her, lifting her slightly off the ground as he kissed her with rare abandonment, the controlled CEO completely absent in this moment of pure joy. When he finally set her down, Reed took the ring from its box with trembling fingers, a vulnerability he showed to no one else. As he slid it onto her finger, the tiny constellation sapphires caught the garden lights, sparkling like actual stars. "It's perfect," Arya breathed, watching how the ring seemed to capture the light around them. "There's one more surprise," Reed admitted, leading her to the center table. He pressed a button on a small remote, and suddenly soft music filled the garden, the same classical piece that had been playing in the cafe when they first shared hot chocolate with Sophia. As they swayed together beneath the canopy of lights, Reed whispered against her hair, "Sophia helped plan this. She's been keeping the secret for weeks, which has been excruciating for her." Arya laughed softly, imagining the child's struggle to contain such exciting news. "When can we tell her?" "I promised to call the moment you said yes," Reed admitted. "She made me practice the proposal with her as critic. Your actual version got significant upgrades based on her feedback." The image of serious Reed rehearsing his proposal for his 6-year-old daughter's approval made Arya's heart swell with even greater love for them both. "Should we call her now?" she suggested, knowing Sophia would be waiting anxiously. Reed nodded, pulling out his phone and dialing. He put it on speaker just as Sophia answered on the first ring. "Dad, did you ask her? What did she say? Is she going to be my mom? Did she like the lights? Did—" "Sophia," Reed interrupted gently. "Perhaps you should let Arya answer those questions herself." "Arya," Sophia's voice pitched higher with excitement. "Are you there? Did you say yes?" "I did say yes," Arya confirmed, unable to keep the emotion from her voice. "The lights are beautiful. The ring is perfect. And yes, if it's okay with you, I would be honored to be your mom." Sophia's squeal of delight needed no translation. "I knew IT. Grandma owes me $5. She said you might need time to think about it, but I said you'd say yes right away because you love us and we love you and we're already a family anyway." Reed exchanged amused glances with Arya at this insight into behind-the-scenes family betting. "When are you coming home?" Sophia continued breathlessly. "Can I see the ring? Can I be the one to tell my class? Jenny's mom and dad just got married and she got to bring cupcakes to school. Can I bring cupcakes? Can I be the flower girl? Can I—" "Sophia," Reed interjected with fond exasperation. "Perhaps we can discuss details tomorrow? It's getting late." "Okay, but promise you'll call me first thing?" "Promise?" "Promise," they replied in unison, causing Sophia to giggle with delight. After ending the call, Reed pulled Arya close again, the garden lights creating a private universe around them. "Are you happy?" he asked, suddenly serious. Arya considered the question, thinking about the winding path that had led her here, from abandoned bride to beloved partner and soon-to-be stepmother. "Completely," she answered truthfully. "This isn't the life I planned, but it's infinitely better than anything I could have imagined." Reed smiled, rare vulnerability shining in his eyes. "Thank you for not giving up that day at the station. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible," she replied, echoing the words that had become meaningful between them. As they moved across the illuminated garden, surrounded by the physical representation of their journey together, Arya reflected on the mysterious workings of fate. How endings could become beginnings, how strangers could become family, and how sometimes the greatest love stories start on the worst days of our lives. Their wedding was everything Arya's first almost wedding wasn't. Instead of the grand cathedral and 200 guests that had been planned for her ceremony with Dominic, Arya and Reed chose the observatory of their home, the glass dome offering a view of the autumn night sky above them. Only 60 guests attended, family, close friends, and colleagues who had become friends. The space was transformed with simple white flowers and hundreds of tiny lights that mimicked the stars above. Elena's parents were given places of honor in the front row, Victoria having evolved from reluctant acceptance to genuine affection for the woman who loved her granddaughter so completely. Arya wore a simple silk gown in soft blue rather than traditional white, a deliberate choice to distinguish this commitment from her previous one. Reed waited for her beneath the dome, Sophia standing proudly beside him as junior bridesmaid, their matching expressions of wonder when Arya appeared bringing tears to many eyes. Their vows, written together over quiet evenings, acknowledged the unexpected nature of their love story. "I wasn't looking for you," Arya began, her voice steady despite the emotion evident in her eyes. "I was lost, broken, convinced that love wasn't meant for me. You didn't try to fix me. You simply offered kindness when I needed it most, then stood beside me as I rebuilt myself into someone stronger than before." Reed, typically reserved in public, spoke with uncharacteristic openness. "You taught me that grief and joy can coexist, that opening my heart again wasn't a betrayal of the past but an honor to it. You showed Sophia and me how to create new constellations while keeping the original stars in our sky." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Sophia couldn't contain her excitement, throwing her arms around both of them before they had even finished their first kiss as a married couple. The guests laughed, recognizing in that spontaneous embrace the true nature of this union, not just two people joining lives, but a family becoming whole. For Sophia, the wedding represented the official recognition of what she'd known for months. Arya was an essential part of their family. She had embraced her role in the wedding planning with characteristic enthusiasm, solemnly testing cake flavors and offering decisive opinions on flower arrangements. "Dad says I'm the bridge between your lives," she explained to Arya during a dress fitting, repeating Reed's words with careful precision. "That means I'm very important to the construction of our family." The night before the wedding, Sophia presented Arya with a handmade book titled My Two Moms. Inside were drawings of Elena based on photographs, alongside drawings of activities she'd done with Arya. The final page showed all four of them together among the stars. "Mom would like you," Sophia said confidently. "Dad says you both see things other people miss." During the reception, Sophia gave a speech she'd written herself, reading carefully from index cards clutched in her small hands. "When I was little, my mom went to heaven. Dad and I were sad for a long time. Then we met Arya at the train station. She was sad too. But when sad people help each other, they can make happiness again." Her simple wisdom brought tears to many eyes, including Reed's, a rare public display of emotion from the normally composed CEO. Later, as Sophia danced standing on Reed's shoes while Arya watched from nearby, one of Reed's board members commented, "I've never seen that child so content. Or Reed, for that matter." "They deserve it," Arya replied simply. "They've taught me as much about healing as I've shown them." As Arya moved through their wedding celebration, she couldn't help but reflect on the stark differences from what would have been her wedding day with Dominic. Beyond the obvious contrasts in size and setting, the fundamental feeling was entirely different. Her almost wedding had been built on external expectations: the perfect dress, the prestigious venue, the carefully curated guest list designed to impress. Every decision had been made with consideration of how it would appear to others, often at the expense of what she truly wanted. This wedding centered on authenticity rather than appearance. Reed had suggested hiring a prestigious event planner, but Arya preferred arranging details themselves, ensuring every element held personal meaning. The music included Elena's favorite classical pieces alongside contemporary songs Sophia loved. The menu featured dishes from significant moments in their relationship, including hot chocolate served with dessert, a nod to their first meeting. Most striking was Arya's internal landscape. With Dominic, she had felt anxious, desperately hoping the perfect wedding would secure a perfect marriage. With Reed, she felt serene, knowing their relationship had already been tested by real challenges and emerged stronger. In a moment of private reflection during the reception, Arya silently thanked Dominic for leaving her at the altar. His absence that day had created this space for something far more genuine to enter her life. The thought carried no bitterness, only gratitude for how completely her path had changed. As the evening concluded, Reed found Arya at the observatory window, gazing at the city lights below. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, both of them reflected in the glass. "Happy?" he asked simply. "Beyond words," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "I was just thinking about that day at the train station, how completely devastated I felt, how certain I was that my life was ruined." Reed nodded, his chin resting on her shoulder. "The universe had other plans, better ones," Arya agreed, though I wouldn't have believed that possible at the time. Their journey from that chance meeting to this moment contained profound lessons about life's unexpected turns, how endings create space for new beginnings, how strangers can become family, how the courage to help someone in distress, Sophia's innocent instinct to approach a crying woman, can set in motion events that transform multiple lives. The moral of their story wasn't just about romance, it was about resilience in the face of heartbreak, about offering kindness to strangers, and about the courage to trust again when all evidence suggests you shouldn't. Most importantly, it was about recognizing that our darkest moments don't define us. They merely set the stage for the light that follows if we remain open to it. In the years that followed, whenever Arya encountered someone in distress, she remembered the handkerchief offered by his serious-faced father and his compassionate daughter, and she never hesitated to extend the same kindness that had changed her life. And there you have it, friends, the extraordinary journey of Arya, Reed, and Sophia. From a devastating moment at a train station to a family bound together by choice and love. Their story reminds us that sometimes what feels like our worst day can actually be the first step toward our best life. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows me to continue sharing these powerful stories of transformation and hope. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me about a time when something that initially seemed devastating in your life actually led you to unexpected blessing. Your story might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. Next week, I'll be sharing another remarkable true story about second chances and the power of human connection. You won't want to miss it, so make sure you've turned on notifications. Remember, the most beautiful chapters of your life may still be unwritten, waiting just beyond what looks like an ending. Thank you for joining me on Mr. Raw's Story Trail, where every path leads to wisdom if we have the courage to follow it.